Hey guys, ready to find out what happens next? Let's get into it then. Chapter 22. Speak now. Sky plopped down on the couch, head in her hands. Only a day had passed since Alistair and Valen left, but already she was absolutely miserable. Why wouldn't he want me there? She whispered to herself as tears fell from her face. I know we weren't on the same page, but still. Are you really that bothered by this, Skylar? A deep voice asked quietly. She looked up sharply at the voice and found that she was now staring face to face with the dark magician. I thought you only appeared in my dreams, she said, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I have my ways, he replied with a half smile, though it faded to irrepressibly concern. Now, about the Raphael getting married thing. Why are you upset? I don't know. We were in a fight, but he still should have told me. You still care for him then? Yes, she said. Then what are you doing sulking here? Go get him. She hesitated for one more moment, mulling this over. You're right, she said at last, rising to her feet determinedly, and she started walking towards the stairs, preparing to pack. She paused and looked back at the dark magician. Are you like my dual master spirit? He muttered, chuckled, dipped his head in confirmation, and vanished from view. Raphael's wedding. If any know of a reason that this man and this woman should not be joined in holy matrimony, please speak now or forever hold your peace, the minister said. All the guests looked at each other, and when no one spoke, the preacher continued. Do you, Marie and Marshall, take Raphael to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do, the blonde woman said with a giggle, clinging to his arm. From behind them, Alistair mimicked gagging, and Raphael gave him an exasperated glare from over his shoulder. Do you, Raphael, take Marie to be your lawfully wedded wife? Raphael paused and looked at his two companions. Alistair had the "you're going to regret this" look on his face, and Valen seemed to be directing his attention everywhere but the altar, preferably the glistering chandelier. He paused, frowning. He could not get himself to say the words. He cleared his throat and tried again. He had to say it, but just say it, Raphael, Marie snarled through her teeth, managing to keep her smile. Don't! A voice called out sharply from the back of the church. The church, Raphael and Marie turned to look at the person who spoke. The congregation gasped at the go. Alistair managed to look surprised, and Valen stopped looking around to focus at the back of the church. Raphael was shocked as well, but he managed to say one word. Skylar? Alistair's POV. Seriously? Out of all colors for a tuxedo, she chooses a pink one? That girl had some massive issues, I think, with a grimace as I watched the ceremony take place. Do you, Marie Marshall, take Raphael to be your lawfully wedded husband? I hear the preacher ask. I do, the blonde woman said with a giggle, clinging to Raphael's arm. I shuddered and then proceeded to mime gagging, the sound just audible enough for Raphael to turn his head and give me an exasperated glare. Ugh, I don't care what you think, Raphael. Gag me. I looked over at Valen, only to find that he was looking up at the chandelier. I elbowed him in the ribs, and he let out a quiet yelp. What was that for? He whispered fiercely. Pay attention, I whispered back, tipping my head at Raphael's back. The teenager shrugged and focused back on the ceremony, although I can tell he's bored with it. I calmly looked around the room, and due to my excellent eyesight, I noticed a curtain shifting at the back of the church. Since I know that none of the guests would hide in the curtain, I knew that meant only one thing. I hope she makes her move soon. Do you, Raphael, take Marie to be your lawfully wedded wife? I then turned my side back onto the ceremony in front of me, watching as Raphael's shoulders tensed. He paused, looking over at us. I gave him a look that said, You're going to regret this, and you know it. Pretty sure Valen was directing his attention everywhere but the altar. Raphael turned back to the priest, and began to say something. But then he stopped talking, clearly hesitating. I heard him clear his throat and try again. Just say it, Raphael, Marie snarled through her teeth. Witch. Don't! A voice called out sharply from the back of the church. The church, Raphael, and Marie turned to look at the person who spoke. The congregation looked at the congregation gasped at the girl. It's about time. I inwardly pumped a fist in the air, though I'm slightly surprised at her timing. Valen stopped looking around to focus at the back of the church. Raphael was shocked as well, but he managed to say one word. Skylar? Sky's POV. Okay, I'm officially lost, I said irritably, walking aimlessly around France. I'm pretty sure I've passed the Eiffel Tower for the 5th time now. I'm not going to get anywhere at this rate. Don't be so quick to dump yourself, the dark magician sighed thinly, appearing by my side to walk float by my side. Float by my side. Okay, wise guy, then you tell me where it is, I retorted, ignoring the confused stares from several people. Dark magician just shrugged and continued to follow me. I'm not exactly a map of France guy. Exactly, I said with a heavy sigh. You know, I don't feel right doing this. I'm not the kind of girl who should be rudely barging in on a white-veiled occasion. That may be true, but Raphael is not the kind of boy who would marry the wrong girl. There surely is a reason for this. Yeah, but I'm not invited to the wedding, and I don't know where the blasted church is. As I said it, though, I heard a scream from a nearby church, and I jerked my head up. A moment later, I smirked. Huh, I guess I found it. My magician shook his head in exasperated amusement. If you excuse me, I'm going back into the deck. There's a sort of bet going on as to how long it takes for. I held up my hand to stop him. I don't even want to know. Thanks, dude. With a final nod and a sly bow, with a final nod and a sly bow, he vanished from view, leaving me to stand at the entrance to the church. Well, here goes nothing, I muttered, slipping in the door and hoping no one saw me. Lucky for me, though, the wedding party and guests were already inside. It didn't take much for me to slip into the crowd and blend in. When I heard the same shrill scream I heard earlier, I followed it to a back room. Cautiously, I peered around the door to the room where I found the bride yelling at her bridesmaids. Witch, I muttered, grimacing when she let out another indignant squeal. The bride started to stomp over to the door, and I bolted, scrambling to find a place to hide. I ended up hiding behind a nearby curtain at the back of the church. It was not too long after that when I heard the organ start to play a familiar song. To me, it sounded like a deaf out from behind the curtain. It sounded like a deaf out from behind the curtain. I watched as she floated down in the aisle, as if she was some pageant queen. Even from here, I can see Raphael grimacing. I know he wishes it was me, I thought, ducking back behind the curtain when I noticed people turning to look at the bride. I tuned out most of the wedding from where I was hiding in the curtain, but I came back to reality when I heard the preacher say, "Speak now or forever hold your peace." This was my chance to stop it from happening, but I couldn't get myself to do it. I didn't know what exactly would happen. What if Raphael really wanted to do this? I heard the exchanging of vows and prepared myself to hear Raphael's voice. But when I heard nothing and peered back around the curtain, I found that he was visibly hesitating. Now was my chance. "Don't!" I called out, stepping out from behind the curtain. The whole church turned to look for the owner of the voice. I got horrified looks from everyone in the room at my attire, but I was only looking at Raphael. "Skylar?" I heard Raphael ask, and I could even see his stunned expression. Marie, however, gave me a look that Medusa will be proud of. "I thought your grandfather told you not to invite her," she hissed at Raphael, her voice audible because of the silence in the church. Kenneth Barbie," I snapped hotly. "Security," an elderly man said sharply, whom I was guessing was Raphael's grandfather. I noticed several sweat-clad men rise from their places and advance on me, but I was ready for them. "I wouldn't come closer if I were you," I said with a confident smile. It was then that I felt the presence of my dark magician next to me. I glanced at him from the corner of my eyes and saw the glare he was giving to the security man. "Why not?" asked one man, almost tauntingly. I snapped my fingers and abruptly 2 wolves appeared behind me, snarling and showing their sharp, purely white fangs. "That's why," I replied. There are no pets allowed in this church, began the same elderly gentleman severely. Shut it, you old windbag, I screamed, causing Alistair and Valen to burst out laughing. Raphael was obviously trying to control his composure, but a small smirk still was evident on his features. Relax, I won't be long. 5 minutes, tops, then I'm gone. Then Barbie over there can go dye her hair, lose more brain cells, and get another boob job. Marie growled at me, almost snarling. Sky, Raphael said quietly, and my eyes went to him. What are you doing here? Saving you from making the biggest mistake of your life, I replied, my eyes softening a bit as I gazed at him. Look, Raphael, your family disowned you once you refused to stay with them. Instead, you joined our doomed family, I continued, inwardly smirking at all the horrified expressions at the word doom. I cleared my throat and continued talking. They completely cut you off from everything, and now they just want you back in their lives to marry some blonde bimbo. No offense to blonde people, just a skank in the dress. You can't honestly say that you're going to be happy living with Barbie over there and having your grandpa control everything. Sky, Raphael trailed off, looking conflicted. It's your life. I can't control it. If you want to marry Barbie over there, then do it. I can't stop you. Heck, Alistair and Valen can't stop this either, let alone Lola and Amber. But remember, you'll be giving up the one thing that makes you happy. I paused as my eyes started tearing up. I was not going to cry. Not right now. I wouldn't let that happen. Living with us back in Domino, going about our not-so-normal lives with Amber popping out of the chimney unexpectedly, Valen and Alistair constantly pranking each other, with you always stepping in to stop them, going to the lake, riding the horses, even watching the private relationship between Lola and Alistair. There's nothing going on between us, snapped Alistair hotly, his face turning red. I smiled in spite of myself. Not the point, Alistair. What I'm trying to say is that you're going to be the missing piece in our very, very odd family. But like I said, it's up to you. I turned to leave, the wolves following obediently at my heels. I looked over my shoulder at the altar, where Raphael was watching me silently. I guess this will be the last time I'll ever see you. I bet Gramps over there won't let me. I guess this will be the last time I'll ever see you. I bet Gramps over there won't let me stop by. I then directed a school at the blonde woman standing beside Raphael. And you, Miss Bimbo, don't mess this up with him. He's an excellent man, gentle, caring, kind, and super sweet. I know he'll make you happy, and I wish you two the best. Aww, she said, tearing up. Thank you. You can stay. I overstayed my welcome. I got over her quietly. Plus, my cousin is waiting in his private jet for me, I said, finally letting out a sob as I stride out from the hall, almost running out of the church, and sitting on the steps the moment I get outside. A single tear fell down my face. You did a good job, my dark magician said comfortably, appearing next to me. It still hurts, I sobbed. I could feel him put his arm around my shoulder, but due to him being a spirit, the attempt failed. I understood the sentiment though, and I let out a rueful laugh. Thanks for trying. Chapter 23. Another Now. We're home, Valen yelled, bursting through the door and followed closely by Alistair. Nimrod, there's no need to yell, he said agitatedly. Sky, he called as he looked around. Oh, you're back, I said, poking my head out of the kitchen. How was the wedding? It was awesome, Valen exclaimed, pumping his fist in the air and accidentally breaking a nearby vase. Valen, Alistair snapped, annoyed. That wasn't necessary. It's all right, I said, smiling. Why don't you two go unpack? The two nodded, and Valen bolted up the stairs. Shaking his head, Alistair followed after him. I can't believe he married her, I said in disbelief once they had disappeared upstairs. How do you know that? My magician asked, appearing next to me. Because, what are you wearing? I exclaimed. My magician was currently clad in the dark magician's ghost outfit, skirt and all. Do I want to? We had a poll as to. If it's the same poll as last time, I don't want to know, I said, smiling in despite of myself. Anyways, how do you know that? My magician asked, appearing next to me. It's a feeling I have in my gut, I replied softly. I say that he didn't marry her, he replied matter-of-factly. Really, smartass? I growled. Sky, who are you talking to? I flinched when I heard Alistair holler down the stairs. Crap. I'm talking to the clan, I called back, glaring at my magician, who was hunched over and laughing. Shut up, I whispered to him fiercely. You're weird, Alistair shouted back. If you see Valen, tell him not to bother me. Whatever, I replied. I looked back at my magician with a sigh. Phew, that was close. It will be your birthday in 2 weeks, right? Yes. So? Shouldn't they remember that? They don't know much about me, I said. Back at Doma, they never celebrated my birthday. However, before the pharaoh and his friends defeated the Orichalcos, Raphael took me out to dinner once to celebrate it. Other than that, though, there wasn't anything else. See, he remembered. True, but the other two haven't remembered for the past 3 years. They'll remember. I know they will. With Alistair. Are you insane? He nearly shouted into the phone. Her birthday is in 2 weeks and you haven't gotten her anything? She's hard to shop for, the voice on the other line said defensively. We went over this at Christmas. Get her jewelry. Alistair, I need her. Do you now, for your sexual fantasies? There was silence as the voice spoke up again. Not the point. The point is, just get her something. You know her better than Valen or I do. I mean, you took her out for dinner back in Doma. True. Why are you trying so hard? She'll like anything you give her, especially if it's something shiny. She's fond of those things. I can't just do that, Alistair. Why not? The red biker asked, getting fed up with the blonde on the other end of the phone. Alistair, she most likely hates me for just taking off like that and getting married. I want to get her something special to make up for it. Because... Because? Alistair prompted. I love her, Raphael's voice said quietly. I knew it! Alistair exclaimed. I won the bet. Bet? Alistair froze. Not important. If you love her, Raphael, then get her something special that shows that. Thanks, Alistair. I'll call you tomorrow. Please, behave with Valen. I'll try, but I'm not making any promises. Sky's POV. If you love her, Raphael, then get her something special that shows that. I heard Alistair saying to the phone. He did marry her after all, I whispered to myself. I fought back the tears that desperately wanted to fall from my eyes. I quickly but quietly walked to my room. Once the door was locked, I slid to the floor and let the tears fall down my face. You shouldn't give up so easily, Skylar, my magician sighed sternly. My magician sighed sternly. There's always hope. What hope? I said, bringing my face up. He married her. You don't know that. He doesn't love me, dude. If he did, he wouldn't have gotten married. My magician was silent, and I knew then that he was hiding something. What aren't you telling me? Nothing, he replied with a fake smile. Spill! Sighing, he voiced what he had currently been thinking. Raphael was forced to marry that girl. His grandfather treated him somehow, Sky. That's bullcrap, I retorted angrily, getting up. Whatever you say, responded my magician wearily, returning to my deck. Was he really forced to marry her? I asked myself once he had vanished from view. To clear my head, I went and turned on my iPod to get my mind off of this. However, since everything seems to be against me, lyrics to Another Now by Kate Alexa filled the room. I don't know what inspired me to do this, but I went to my desk and grabbed my sketchbook. Flipping through the pages, I couldn't help but smirked when I opened to the first page. I let out a chuckle at the image that was staring right in front of me. It was the day when I first met all three of them. Four, if you count Gurimo. Flashback. You wanted to see us, Master Darts? You wanted to see us, Master Darts? Gurimo asked, walking into the temple with the other bikers already there. Yes. Where's that Valentine girl? Obsessing with Weller again, Alistair grumped. Good luck getting her here. Fine, we'll simply have to do without her, sighed Darts. I called you here so that you could meet our newest member, who's joining us as of today. Great, another one? Gurimo complained. We already have a girly girl and an annoying Australian brat. Oi, who you calling brat, you get? Not to complain too much to you, Master, but I already have to keep an eye on what is essentially a zoo. What more do we need? Someone to put you in your place, old man. A female. Someone to put you in your place, old man, a female voice said coolly, walking in. The girl had mid-led brown hair and hazel eyes. Her outfit consisted of a green plaid miniskirt and a black tank top with neon green trim. Several gold and silver bands decorated her upper arms, and she was wearing several rings on her fingers. Valen burst out laughing. Finally, someone to put old Jeremy in his place, he announced, shooting a friendly grin at the newcomer. Raphael raised an eyebrow at her, but declined to comment. It's Gurimo, you annoying little... Gurimo, enough! Darts ordered, and the man instantly silenced his insult. I want you all to meet Miss Skylar Whitlock. Pleasure to meet you, Free, I said, giving them a mock curtsy. Excuse me, what about me? Growled Gurimo, indignant that she had ignored him. It's not polite to be rude to an elder. I'm not being rude. You're just insignificant, I said, smirking. If he wasn't pissed before, Gurimo was pissed. He had steam coming out of his ears, literally. Why, you little... Did you guys hear something? I asked innocently. I swear it sounded just like a little germ talking, but I don't see anything. But then again, you can't exactly see a germ, can you? I finished, and even Alistair looked vaguely amused by now. Gurimo's eyes narrowed, and his face flushed in outrage. You little... Enough! Dart spat. I appreciate the entertainment you both are offering, but for now, Gurimo, you will need to withdraw and focus on your next assignment. I will deal with our recruit. Grumbling, the monocled man stormed from the room, leaving behind a loudly laughing Valen and an amused Alistair. Alistair, Valen, you're free to go as well, the leader said, waving a dismissive hand. I like that little lady, Valen said to Alistair as they disappeared out the door. She's got some spunk there. Dart waited until both of the other bikers vanished before redirecting his attention to Raphael and Skylar. I had been studying the older man with interest, while the blonde had been dutifully ignoring me and focused entirely on Dart. Raphael, please show Miss Skylar around. I will have Alistair or Gurimo do so, but I do not believe either of them will be through in the matter, he said calmly, turning his back on them both. Raphael dipped his head in acquiescence before grabbing my arm and leading me out of the hall. Let's go, he said gruffly. Don't touch me, I exclaimed, getting out of his grasp. I don't need to be dragged around by you. I can walk by myself, I continued. I can see that, he said wearily, gesturing down the expansive passageway. Ladies first. Skylar huffed but started down the hallway, leaving him behind in his own thoughts. End of flashback. I couldn't help but let out a little laugh. I turned the page over and laughed. It was a picture of Alistair with mouse traps all over his body. That was one April Fool's Day that Valen nor Alistair forgot. It hasn't been the same without him here. The house is quieter than usual. Valen won't get into trouble without Raphael around, because Alistair actually will punch him if he gets out of hand. The quiet is really starting to get on my nerves. A small, sad smile made its way across my features then. Raphael hadn't been paying attention to me to start out with, but I realized sometime later that he must have been keeping an eye on me after all. When my birthday came around, he took me out to dinner for the occasion. Flashback. There was a knock on my door that startled me out of my thoughts. I had been surfing the internet all day, bored out of my mind. Darts wouldn't let any of us leave the temple unless we were on an assignment, and it didn't help that said temple was on an island in the middle of the ocean. "It's open," I called, going back to my laptop. I heard the door open and figured it was Valen, but when I looked back up, I noticed that it was Raphael. You're looking snazzy today, I said with a smirk when I realized that he was not in his normal attire, instead in a casual polo and slacks. "Cute," he said dryly, "but I didn't come over here for a compliment." "Then what brings you to my humble abode?" I asked, rolling off my stomach and sitting up fully on the mattress. "I wanted to take you out to dinner," he stated calmly. I stared back at him in surprise, his words having completely got me off guard. That's sweet, but why exactly do you want to do that?" "It's your birthday for one, and for another, you've worked hard since you've arrived, and Master Darts gave me permission to take you to the mainland. Grimo has to go over there anyway, so we could tag along for the ride." I was silent for a few minutes before I smiled. Anything was better than being cooped up in this room. "All right, give me a minute." And a flashback. That was the best night I ever had in Doma. Hell, that was the best night I've ever had, period. And I mean it. After then, I totally regretted treating him the way I did, sarcastically and cruelly. For instance, he was sent to capture the Pharaoh's soul, and instead captured the soul of the Pharaoh's host. Flashback. "How can that be?" he questioned. "I was sure I was dueling the Pharaoh." "Ah, I see the screw-up fairy has visited us again, and for once, Valen didn't summon it," I said, walking into the room, arms crossed and a smirk across my face. Valen started to laugh until he got what I meant. "Hey!" Alistair couldn't help the smirk that appeared on his face. "Miss Whitlock, since Raphael couldn't do the task, would you like to capture the soul of the Pharaoh?" Darts asked. "It's a thankless job, but I've got a lot of karma to burn off, so no," I replied, walking out of the room. End of flashback. That was a really funny experience. He did hate me for a while after that, but eventually he forgave me. I could feel this pain in my chest getting stronger. It's hard. I can't leave him behind, but I have no choice. If he married Dad, I should move on. But why is it so hard? Since that night, he and I got closer and closer to each other. We started having conversations when we weren't on assignment, and I even started following him around. Even before the whole Orichalcos thing happened, even before we were dating, I relied on him a lot. Tears started blurring my vision and began falling down my face once again. I'm alone now, aren't I? He isn't here anymore. He's gone and married to that complete and damnable bimbo. I felt more tears roll down my face. Raphael is never going to come back. For the first time since Doma, I honestly feel alone. The song ended, and I couldn't help it. I started to cry in earnest. burying my head in the nearest pillow and letting out the sobs that had been shaking my entire body. Normal POV. Alistair paused as he passed by Skylar's bedroom, catching the sounds of music and muffled sobs through her door. He set the laundry hamper down and eyed the door hesitantly, wondering if he should go in and see what was wrong. He shook his head. He couldn't do anything to make her feel better. He knew exactly what Skylar was crying about, and there was very little he could do for her. It didn't stop his eye from softening in pity as he picked the hamper back up and continued on his way down the stairs. Whatever you've got planned, Raphael, do it quickly. You're hurting her. Chapter 24. Happy birthday, Skylar. 2 weeks later, on Sky's birthday, Raphael was forced to marry that girl. His grandfather treated him somehow, Sky. That phrase has been ringing in my head for a long while. Well, what if he was telling the truth? Maybe my magician is right for once. I mused. For once, go, get your head on straight. I'm always right, my magician said as he appeared next to me. Good God! I exclaimed, jumping back and falling on my butt. The magician just laughed as I glared up at him. You have to stop doing that. Get used to it, Sky. I'm a ninja, he said with a spur. What do you want? I asked, feigning disinterest. Hurtful, he said, putting a hand over his head. Anyways, I'm well aware that you don't believe what I said. I have a solution to this problem. Huh? Do tell, I asked, suddenly becoming interested. It might be in your best interest to call someone who can easily access Raphael's family information and his background. That's an invasion of privacy. Do you want to know the truth? I was silent. Yes, I do. Then call him. Oh no way am I calling him. He's the only one who can do this, and you know it. I paused as I thought it over. Fine. My magician smiled and reached over to grab my cell phone. Now be a good girl and call him. I thought you were a spirit. How can you touch? A magician never reveals his secrets, Skylar, he replied, disappearing with a chuckle. I grumbled and dialed a familiar number. The phone rang for a few seconds before an annoyed voice answered the phone. What do you want, Skylar? Is that any way to talk to someone? To you, yes, the voice replied. I was silent for a while, ticked off at what he said, but after a moment, I spoke again. Kaiba, can you do me a huge favor? I asked with a very sweet voice. This trick usually works. Why should I? Because I'm your cousin and you love me, and because you own me. There was silence on the other side, followed by a heavy sigh. Fine. What is it? I need you to look into Raphael's family history for me. And why would I do something like this? Just do it, please. For me? Give me a minute, he sighed. I heard him typing on a computer keyboard on the other end of the phone, but nothing else. There, I sent it to you, he said at last, clearly annoyed. Thanks, you're awesome. I know I am. You and your huge ego. Whatever. Goodbye, Skylar. And with that parting comment, he hung up. I set my phone down and grabbed my laptop, plopping down on my bed. I heard a startled yelp come from underneath me, and I bolted up immediately. I had sat on Jasper. "Sorry, boy," I apologized. He just looked up at me and settled back on the bed. Opening my laptop, I checked my email, and lo and behold, he had kept his word. There was a new email in the inbox and an attachment accompanying it. I opened the document and began reading over the information. Wealthy family, 2 younger siblings, happily married parents, shipwrecked. Okay, but what I'm looking for isn't in this part. Maybe it's further in this document, I said with a frown, skimming over the document until I got to the part that I was looking for. Here we are, information on his grandfather. Now, let's see what there is to... "Skylar, get down here!" Valen's voice shouted, causing both me and Jasper to jump and fall off the bed. "What do you want?" I called back, picking myself back up and scowling at the door. "Declan and Lola are here." "Give me a minute," I hollered back as I recollected myself. Alistair's POV. "I don't get it. Why would Raph go through with it anyway? I mean, Sky showed up and crashed the wedding for him, yet he still marries that." "You're asking me?" I asked, even though I know Valen's right. Something's going on. I saw that look on Raphael's face, and I know he wanted to go after Sky when she left, but something had obviously kept him there. What was that reason? Valen flopped on the sofa and grimaced. "You're always the smart guy," he said. "You know Raph pretty well." I sighed. "I thought I did too, which is why I'm just as confused about this as you are," I admitted. "I think there's something going on that he didn't tell us, but I've got no way to prove it." I turned my head to look at Valen, and I saw him sitting upside down on the couch. "Valen, dare I ask what you're doing?" "Valen, dare I ask what you're doing?" "What? Amber does it all the time, and I want to try it," he answered back, a broad smile on his face. "I swear, sometimes I think you two are siblings," I muttered, looking away from Valen again. "Now, I think we should begin with figuring out what we know about Raphael and his past." When I turned back to face him, though, Valen was no longer on the sofa, but on the computer. "Valen, what are you doing?" I snapped. "Checking Sky's emails. There's a possibility that she's done something already." I was shocked. Valen's doing something that actually makes sense. It's the end of the world. Although I must say, I'm a bit bothered that I didn't think of that first. Let's see here. We already knew all of that, but... Hey, here we are. Information on his grandfather. Valen screamed excitedly. "Let me see," I demanded, coming over to read the document over his shoulder. His grandfather is... At that precise moment, there was a knock at the door, and we both groaned. I pushed Valen off of the chair, signaling for him to answer it, as I took the formerly occupied seat. "You suck," he muttered, walking to the door. I just chuckled and continued reading the email. "Happy birthday, Skylar!" 2 voices yelled, booming through the house once the front door had opened. The result was that Valen let out a startled cry and tripped, sprawling on the floor. "Never mind, it was just Valen," Lola said. "What do you want?" I asked, walking to the doorway. Simple. It's Sky's birthday, and to cheer her up, we brought home videos," Declan explained, holding a box up in emphasis. I'll get her. I'll get her, Valen said, bolting up and running to the stairway to get her. After a couple minutes of shouting up the stairs, he bounced back happily. She's on her way, he announced, smiling. A few seconds after that, she appeared at the top of the stairs. What? She said, appearing from the stairwell with an annoyed expression. Happy birthday! Lola and Declan screamed simultaneously, startling her. Thanks, guys, she replied once she regained her composure, smiling. What's in the box? Home videos, Declan said brightly. We're going to watch them. Well, it's only $1, but sure. Nope, it's free. The other two are hiding inside this one. Hell no. Sky's POV. Hell yes, Declan retorted. We're going to watch them. Sweet. We get to see Sky as a baby. Valen yelled. Come on, it's your birthday. Don't you want to remember your youth? Asked Declan, and I realized then he wouldn't let me off the hook. I sighed in defeat. Even if I said no, I don't think they would listen. Fine. Here's the popcorn. Valen yelled again, coming out with the ball. How did? They called in advance, Alistair explained with a smirk, interrupting me. Put them in and push play, Valen chirped excitedly, plumping on the sofa. Everyone else followed suit. 10 minutes passed, but so far watching the movies was going smoothly. They varied from me in diapers to talking and... Oh no! No! Switch it! We're not watching me be potty trained. Too bad, Declan said, sticking his tongue out and putting the remote in his pants. We have to touch the remote later, you know. Alistair snapped, visibly annoyed. Shush! Lola hissed. This is good stuff. My cell phone began to ring. The lyrics to Begging on Your Knees by Victoria Justice blasting from the device. I blinked when I noticed that it was an unknown caller, and answered it hesitantly. Hello? Sky, I know you're probably mad at me, but please don't hang up. A gruff voice spoke quickly, even as I recognized the speaker, likely worried he would get hung up on. For good reason. Why am I not supposed to do just that? I asked, managing to keep my voice level. A long silence followed this question, and I wondered if he had hung up. Because I owe you an explanation for the wedding, he said at last, and because it's your birthday. Explanation? What explanation? You went and got married and told everyone but me. I hardly see how that's an... Skylar, the reason you didn't know was because of my grandfather. He knew how close you and I are, and... That's a lie, I hissed. Deep down, I knew he was telling the truth, but I didn't want to admit it. Sky, please don't hang up. So now you're judging that I'm going to be banging you? So now you're judging that I'm going to be hanging up? Wow, I scoffed. Being married has made you an even bigger jerk. Sky, I didn't marry her, he growled, exasperated. When you left. Liar! I screamed. You did still marry her. Skylar, he didn't marry her, Alistair said suddenly, cutting over my next reply. What do you know, Alistair? I asked fiercely. I saw the look on Raphael's face when you crashed the wedding. I knew that he wanted to go after you when you left. Not true. Sky, it's true. My grandfather threatened to hurt you. He's a strong man, stronger than your family, and he will find a way to get to you. Let him try. If he does, then I'll know you're telling the truth. I heard him gasp on the other line, as well as everyone in the room. You do know that he's on speaker, right? Ventured Lola at last. I looked at my phone and sighed. I pressed the speaker button off and moved into the front hallway. Once there, I continued my conversation. Now, why did you really call? Because it's your birthday, and I have never missed your birthday. His voice sounds both heavy and resigned now. Why care all of a sudden? You don't care for me anymore. You're in love with Marie, and likely you're still married to her, so I'm not buying it. I spat venomously. Skylar, please listen to me, he said, his voice firm enough to silence me. When I didn't interrupt him, he decided that it was safe to continue. I know you most likely hate me for getting married and leaving you out of it. I didn't want to risk your safety, but I still should have told you what I was doing. Anyways, I wanted to get you something special on your birthday because... Because what? I asked when he trailed off, suddenly curious. Like I said, it's your birthday. I need to get you something important to make up for the fact that I left you behind. I would love to see you try to get me to like you again, I said, though it spoken with half-hearted conviction. Raphael let out a heavy sigh on the other end on the phone, but he continued on with, Your present should be there right about now. Open the front door. Before I could reply, he had hung up. After giving the phone a confused gaze, I put it in my pocket and walked over to open the door. I was not expecting to see what I saw when I opened the door. Staring back at me was a tall, muscular man with spiky blonde hair and crystal blue eyes. He looked down at me with a nameless expression at me and shut his phone off, remaining where he stood. Raphael? Wait a second, guys. Chapter 25. Wait, what? Last time. Skylar, please listen to me, he said, his voice firm enough to silence me. When I didn't interrupt him, he decided that it was safe to continue. I know you most likely hate me for getting married and leaving you out of it. I didn't want to risk your safety, but I still should have told you what I was doing. Anyways, I wanted to get you something special on your birthday. Because what? I asked when he trailed off, suddenly curious. Like I said, it's your birthday. I need to get you something important to make up for the fact that I left you behind. I would love to see you try to get me to like you again, I said, though it spoken with half-hearted conviction. Raphael let out a heavy sigh on the other end of the phone, but he continued on with, Your present should be there right about now. Open the front door. Before I could reply, he had hung up. After giving the phone a confused gaze, I put it in my pocket and walked over to open the door. I was not expecting to see what I saw when I opened the door. Staring back at me was a tall, muscular man with spiky blonde hair and crystal blue eyes. He looked down at me with a nameless expression at me and shut his phone off, remaining where he stood. Raphael? Sky's POV. Raphael? I started. This isn't real. He's supposed to be in France. He's not really standing here with his suitcase behind him. My thoughts were already racing, as I stared up at him. "He really is here, Skylar," my magician murmured as he appeared next to me. "Go away," I hissed at him, noticing Raphael's suddenly confused expression. I muttered, "Forget it." My magician simply chuckled as he vanished once again. "Were you just talking to yourself?" asked Raphael with a frown. "I said, forget it," I ground out between my teeth. As I glared at him, I noticed that he visibly Frenched. "Raphael 0, Sky 1. I thought to myself triumphantly. A few minutes passed before Raphael spoke. "Sky, the only reason I didn't tell you about the wedding was because my grandfather would have come after you and he would have hurt you. I care about you too much to have that happen," he said quietly. "Oh, sure," I said sarcastically. "You care so much that you went and married Marie. Yeah, that really screams. I care about you, Sky." "I didn't go through with the wedding," he stated firmly. I opened my mouth to reply, but stopped when I realized what he had said, and instead I remained silent for a long moment. "But Alistair and Valen were your best men. How do they not know that you didn't go through the wedding?" I asked at last. "My grandfather had the wedding day moved after you crashed it," he explained wearily. "He moved it to the day after the original wedding day, since Alistair and Valen had to go home. He wouldn't let them stay, despite the fact they were my best men." "Well, that explains why Valen was going through my email," I muttered. Raphael raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" "Look, I'm going to be completely honest. I had Kaiba do some research on you, because I knew something was up, and I also didn't believe you at..." "Research?" he asked, surprised. "You actually did a background check on me?" "I had to," I said, sitting on the bench outside the door. "I didn't trust you anymore, and I didn't know how else to get answers. Plus, I overheard Alistair talking to you on the phone, and he mentioned that you love Marie, and... I trailed off, tears starting to form in my eyes. "Not now. Please, not now. I will not cry. I will not cry." But at last, the tears started flowing before I could stop them. I covered my eyes instinctively and continued to talk. "You broke me, Raphael. What you did hurt me so much." I felt more weight settle on the bench, indicating that Raphael had sat down as well. "You claimed you cared for me, and after that whole incident we had, you knew I was taking my time, since I was scared you would treat me the way Caden did. I honestly believed you weren't like that, but then you went and got married without bothering to tell me." I started to choke on my words. "So what was I supposed to think? You said you cared for me, and yet you lied to me, and..." Now you're repeating yourself," he said quietly, placing a hand on my shoulder. I scooted away from him, and I lifted my head out of my hands. "I don't care," I hissed furiously, looking at him with puffy red eyes. You hurt me. No, worse. You scare me. How do you expect me to trust you now?" A long and awkward silence fell between us. At last it was broken by Raphael as he cleared his throat. "I'm truly sorry, Skylar," he said heavily, looking me in the eye. "You have every right to be mad at me. I won't blame you if you never forgive me for this. If I was in your shoes, I would probably feel about the same way." I eyed him as he scooted closer, and in spite of myself, I leaned against him. I allowed him to put his arm over my shoulder as he continued to speak. Skylar, you mean everything to me. There's no one else in the world that I would want to be in a relationship with. He wiped the few stray tears that were still on my cheeks. I know you don't trust me right now, he continued as he got to his feet. As he rose, he gently pulled me with him, looking deep into my hazel eyes. But I do want you to know that I love you, and that is not about to change. With those words still ringing in my ears, he bent down and gave me a genuine kiss. Almost at once, a million different thoughts exploded in my head as I instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck and I returned the kiss. When we broke apart, Raphael was once again looking down at me, uncertainly, love and longing clearly evident in his eyes. Uncertainty, love, and longing clearly evident in his eyes. You love me? I questioned. More than anything, he whispered, hugging me close to him. As I said before, you're the only one who has my heart. I really and truly do love you, he continued, his grip tightening. I love you too, Raphael, I replied softly, my voice catching. You can call it my sixth sense, but I swear I felt him smile. Let's go inside, he said, releasing me so that he could grab his luggage. I smiled and reached for his free hand, opening the door for him. Once we entered and I recognized the sounds of the video playing at the moment, I shouted, Declan, turn that video off. Nope, he said, and as Raphael and I entered the room, I was in time to watch him put the remote back in his pants. Again, please keep in mind we used that, Alistair said, disgusted. His gaze shifted to me and subsequently Raphael. His eyes lingered on our intertwined hands and he smiled. It's about freaking time. Welcome back, he commented. The comment caught Valen's attention and he looked over at us. His eyes brightened almost at once. Oi, Raph is back, he exclaimed, leaping to his feet and running to us. Raphael had enough time to let go of my hand before Valen tackled the older man to the ground. There's a first, I declared, looking down at Raphael. He didn't seem to mind being tackled. In fact, he was laughing. But I thought you married Dad. What are you doing here? Asked Valen as he helped Raphael back to his feet. Valen, Raphael started, arching an eyebrow. If I'm here, it should be fairly obvious that I didn't get married after all. True, Valen agreed cheerfully. Hey, Alistair, mind helping me make some popcorn for Raph? I see that the house is still intact. I'm guessing that means no worse? He asked me as Alistair rose to his feet, passing by us to head into the kitchen after Valen. I shrugged. Guess so. It was then that Amber came, rolling out of the chimney with a grin on her face. Welcome back, she chirped. Nice to see you too, began Raphael earnestly. Valen! Everyone looked over to watch a soaking wet Alistair stalk out of the kitchen, soaked to the bone. I'm guessing Valen had been planning this for some time, since he's already edging toward the front hall. You're a dead Aussie. See ya, yelled Valen as he sprinted past us and out the front door, Alistair not too far behind him. Raphael and I looked at each other. It's good to be back, he said with a warm smile. Chapter 46. Oh, no, sorry. Chapter 26. April Fool's Valen. Sky came down the stairs fully dressed the following morning, her face glowing with happiness. She finally had gotten Raphael back, and she had every right to be happy. She headed to the kitchen, and upon entering, she saw Raphael sitting at the table, holding a coffee mug in his hand. The other was scratching Misha under her chin, the cat's contented purrs audible from the other side of the room. The morning newspaper lay flat out on the table. "I see you have your hands full," she said with a chuckle. Raphael shot a mock glare at her. "Not my fault," he started as Sky entered the kitchen. "It was the only way to get her off the paper." "Sure it's not," she replied as she moved to the table. Raphael put the mug down and gently pushed Misha off the table. As Sky came alongside him, he wrapped his arm around her waist and brought her onto his lap. She snuggled into his chest, his chin gently resting on top of her head. This would have been a perfectly romantic moment, but at last a certain Australian bolted down the stairs and passed them in a blur, ruining the moment. "Hey fellas, bye fellas. If Alistair asks, you didn't see me," he exclaimed, running into the pantry and closing the door behind him. Sky blinked, exchanging a confused glance with Raphael. "What's that about?" "I'm not sure, but—" "Wait a minute. What's the date today?" he asked in a suddenly suspicious tone. Sky took out her cell phone to look at the date and groaned. "April 1st. That means April Fool's Day. Great, Valen's favorite holiday." Raphael finished for her, looking distinctly unhappy by that fact. She cocked her head and looked up at the blonde biker. "Should it really be considered a holiday?" "Valen!" Alistair's voice echoed through the house, interrupting the conversation between the couple. Moments later, the redhead stormed down the stairs, wearing nothing but a towel that was unwrapped around his waist. His hair was soaking wet, and his eyes were full of hatred. "Please put some clothes on," Sky requested with a groan. "You're right. I'm far too indecent to be seen like this. Let me go back upstairs and get dressed." "Oh, wait, I can't." "Want to know why?" "Because that freaking Nazi took all of my clothes." "Seriously?" Raphael asked, looking amused despite of himself. "Did he leave you anything?" "No, he didn't even leave me a pair of underwear." "Where is he?" "In the pantry," Sky sighed, jerking a hand to the closed door behind them. "Hey, you said you wouldn't tell him." Valen yelped as he exploded from the pantry, Alistair at his heels. If it helps Alistair get dressed faster, then anything goes," called Sky after them. What the two younger bikers weren't expecting was that Amber and Lola had decided to stop by that morning and were both entering through the front door. At that precise moment, Valen accidentally yanked off the towel from around Alistair's waist. "Oh my God!" the girls screamed, covering their eyes. Raphael and Sky ran out of the kitchen at the sound of the girl's shriek. Raphael quickly assessed the situation and immediately covered Sky's eyes. "Really?" she said flatly. Alistair's face was bright red as he snatched back the towel from a laughing Valen's hand and wrapped it around his waist, muttering an apology to Lola and Amber as he stalked back up the stairs. "That was Disturbing. Valen, please give Alistair his clothes back, Raphael demanded as Alistair's bedroom door slammed upstairs, taking his hand off of Sky's eyes. Where did you put them, Valen? Up in Sky's closet, he announced cheerfully. Why are you always hiding clothes in my closet? Why are you always hiding cheese in my closet? Sky snapped indignantly. Lola, Amber, it's safe to look again, Raphael said, placing a hand on her shoulder. Thank God, he said in unison as their hands lowered from their eyes. While Amber looked completely mortified, Lola had a flustered expression that only Sky recognized. Lola, you, me, my room, she announced as she grabbed her friend by the arm. No, replied Lola hardly, tugging against Sky. Fine, we'll go out for coffee instead. Sweet! Oh, Amber, you actually used the front door for a change, said Valen suddenly. I was kinda expecting you to roll out of the chimney like usual. Hey, I'm not that crazy, she retorted, ignoring Valen's disbelieving look. I have some dignity, you know. Valen, I will beware of Alistair. He's going to find some way to get you back for this morning, Raphael warned. Nothing to worry about, the brunette replied dismissively. I'm the king of pranks around here. Actually, Amber won that title, Lola and Sky said in unison. Valen pouted. Ruin my fun, why don't ya? Raphael striking a fair point, Alistair said, thrillingly, sneakily coming down the stairs. You better watch yourself, or there is going to be one less saucy in this household before this day is out. I'm not afraid of you, Valen stated resolutely, standing his ground. I'll always find a way to retaliate. We'll see about that, Alistair said wickedly as he disappeared out the front door. Well, Lola and I are off to get coffee, Sky announced, grabbing her purse before dragging a protesting Lola out the front door. Raphael followed her out the door and watched Sky leave with a fond expression. As the girl passed by where their motorcycles were parked, though, his gaze went to where Alistair was currently tapping Valen's motorcycle to the nearest light pole with duct tape, and he sighed. He took a step into the house, but let out a startled cry as the doormat beneath his feet slid from under him, and he fell, hitting the floor with an audible thud. Valen promptly started laughing. That was meant for Alistair, but looks like you tripped it instead, he said in between laughs as he offered a hand up to the older man. The blonde growled, accepting Valen's offered hand with a grumble. In the next second, he let out a yelp as something shocked his hand, and he sat back down. Gotcha! Yelled Valen triumphantly, showing him the buzzer in his hand before taking off and vanishing from view. Raphael got to his feet with a growl. He really hated April Fool's Day. Later with Raphael and Alistair. Alistair, can I come in? Raphael asked, knocking on the redhead's door. It's safer in there than out here. Sure, came the muffled reply, and the blonde biker entered the room, closing the door behind him. What is it? Alistair continued. I want to talk to you about something. And this something is Lola. Alistair's face went completely blank. What about her? He asked carefully, though a faint blush was visible across his features. You like her, Raphael stated. When the tower fell, Valen had already taken off into the other room. Amber had her face in her hands, and I covered Sky's eyes, but Lola turned a really interesting shade of red. Gee, it couldn't be because I was naked, Alistair retorted, then paused. Wait, you weren't bothered by the fact I was basically streaking? Raphael raised an eyebrow. Not really. Are you secretly gay? Obviously not. A nice attempt to redirect the conversation. When Alistair went silent, Raphael said exasperately, Look, I'm not exactly the observant one when it comes to these things, but even I've noticed Lola seems to get flustered anytime she's around you, not when you're stark naked. So what? Ask her out, Raphael replied simply. It doesn't hurt to ask. Alistair shrugged nonchalantly. I guess he wouldn't. I'm going to go grab some lunch, he said, getting up and opening the door to his room so he could leave. He was not expecting to hit the cleverly placed trip wire that would cause him to stumble into a solid wall of saran wrap, but he did. Valen! He roared once he had gotten disentangled from the saran wrap. The blonde biker was laughing at him, not stopping even as Alistair directed a murderous glare at the older man. He is so dead, Alistair vowed. With Lola and Sky. Do you think they've destroyed the house? Asked Sky curiously as the house came into view. And by that you mean Alistair and Valen, Sky said, looking at her companion. Most likely, the other girl replied, entering the house. As they entered, they noticed that the house was still in perfect condition. Raphael was sitting on the recliner in the family room, brushing Misha's fur out. Alistair, meanwhile, was lying on the couch with a book in hand. Wow, I'm surprised that the house is still standing, Sky declared in disbelief. It's too quiet, Lola said with a frown. Where's Valen? In his room, getting his comic books, Alistair said with a hint of smugness in his voice. What are you hiding? Raphael asked, clearly not liking the tone Alistair was using. It was then that there were loud popping noises and the petrified Valen tumbled down the stairs. Once he had regained his feet, he literally dove behind Raphael's recliner. Misha jumped off of the man's lap in alarm and disappeared from view. There are bombs up there, Valen yelled. They're all over my room. They're coming for us. The British are coming! Lola and Alistair both burst into laughter, while Raphael merely rolled his eyes. Sky wasn't paying attention and was trying to coax Misha out from behind the potted plant she had taken refuge behind. What's so funny? Valen snapped, peering around from behind the chair. April Fools, Alistair said, smiling victoriously. What does that mean? First off, I highly doubt the British have any interest in us. Second, I spread a whole bunch of cap gunshots all over your bedroom floor, so that when you stepped on them, they'd go off. Alistair said triumphantly. Told you I would get you back. You almost gave me a heart attack, Valen yelled inningly. Expect payback. Go for it, Paul Revere. I dare you. Valen glowed at him before he huffed and took off upstairs, no doubt to exact his vengeance. Alistair sat back down, looking bored. You're going to continue with this? Sky asked. Alistair smiled. Why not? He's not going to win this year. Alistair, began Raphael warningly. Look, Raphael, I don't need to hear the don't destroy the house speech. That Aussie is going down. I'll help, started, much to everyone's surprise. Let's go, Brainstorm, she continued, reaching for Alistair's arm and literally dragging him down into the basement. There's one downfall I see to all this, said Sky, shaking her head. What's that? Raphael asked. It's not even noon yet. This is going to be a really long day. It was about 4 in the afternoon. Lola went home for the day, leaving the rest of the bikers to their own devices. Sky was in the shower, Alistair was making dinner, Raphael was doing some work on the computer, and Valen, well, no one knew where he was. Where is that Aussie? He should be getting his own food, since you might poison his. Raphael stared flatly. As tempting as it is, I'm not risking our health. And besides, his bike is in the garage. Raphael shrugged his shoulders. Then I have just as much knowledge on the matter as you do. From upstairs, both bikers heard the water turn off, indicating that Sky had finished her shower. Well, maybe Sky has an idea where he is, Raphael started to say, but a high-pitched scream interrupted him. The blonde turned his head sharply to the stairs as the sound of someone running down them. There were several thuds, followed by screams of pain. This was more than enough to get Raphael out of the room and to the foot of the stairs, an alarmed expression on his face. He had recognized the scream and the cries of pain. Alistair was right behind him, and the two of them went out on the hallway. Sky was on the floor, wearing nothing but a towel. It was quite obvious she had just gotten out of the shower. Blood was seeping from a hidden cut under her hair, and she had a dazed but frightened expression on her face. "Sky, what happened?" Raphael asked as he got down beside her, not paying attention to the fact that she was practically naked. Alistair disappeared from view for just a moment, but when he returned, he had a dish towel in hand. He gave it to the older biker, who gently placed it over the spot where the cut appeared to be. They'd have to look at it later to figure out how bad it was, but for now, this will do. "Crocodile! There was a crocodile in my room," she replied faintly. Raphael did not even bother questioning it. He knew exactly who had been responsible for this. "Valen!" he yelled, startling everyone around him. It was rare that Raphael even raised his voice. It was quite evident that he was angry. "What's wrong?" Valen asked, coming upstairs from the basement, only to stare in shock at the sight in front of him. "What happened, Sky?" "You have gone too far, Valen," Raphael growled. "A crocodile? Are you trying to kill her?" "No, it's just a baby," the teenager replied, looking shaken. "It was meant for Alistair. The alligator must have gotten out and into her room. I didn't even know." "The prank war ends now," Raphael initiated coldly. Alistair nearly cheered at his victory, till he noticed Raphael's menacing glare directed at him as well. "The same goes for you, Alistair." His expression changed as he carefully helped his girlfriend to her feet. "Valen, I have no idea how the hell you got that gator in the house, but by the time I get done tending to Sky, it better be gone." "Did Raphael just curse?" Alistair whispered to Sky while the older biker went for the first aid kit, Valen trailing after him. "I guess so," she replied, holding the dish towel to her head. They both heard Valen begin in protest. "But Raph, I can't get that gator out by myself." "You brought it in, and you're going to." "I got it," Amber called as she abruptly materialized at the top of the stairs, the baby alligator in her hands. "I brought it in earlier. It's my cousin's," she explained. "Why does your cousin—" "On second thought, I don't want to know," Alistair said heavily. He looked over to Skylar and asked, "You okay?" "I think so," she said shakily. "I'm going to go change before Raphael gets back with the first aid kit," she continued, moving slowly up the stairs. In the later evening, Raphael was pleased by the relative peace and quiet in the house as he sat in his recliner. Sky was sitting on his lap, quietly reading a book and looking no worse for the wear from her fall down the stairs. Alistair was playing with Misha, and Valen was on Sky's laptop. "Valen, I know your laptop is dead, but mine's going to join yours unless you plug it in," commented Sky as she looked over the top of her book. "I'm almost done," he replied distractedly. "I'm just gonna check Facebook and..." He paused, looking at his Facebook status before letting out a horrified scream. "What now?" asked Alistair exasperately. "Who changed my status? My account has been hacked!" he yelled. "What does it say?" Alistair inquired curiously, walking up behind the teen to see for himself. A few seconds later, he burst out laughing. "That is brilliant! I don't know who did that, but my respect to them knows no bounds." "Amber did this," Valen muttered, glaring at the computer as he rose to his feet. "I'll be back," he said as he bolted out the front door. Alistair looked over at the couple, still laughing. "I wonder who did that," he said, a knowing smile on his face as his eyes went to Raphael. Sky looked up at the older man, who seemed quite calm about this latest development. "It was you, wasn't it?" she asked. Raphael arched an eyebrow. How else do you expect me to get back at Valen without physically hurting him? Besides, no one messes with my girl." Chapter 28. Sorry guys, I don't know why I'm messing the chapters. Please hold on. I'm still trying to figure out what number am I to. Please wait a moment. Okay, I'm 27 now, so I'm pretty sure this is the right number. Chapter 27. Shopping and Farmville Obsessions. "Valen, you're still on the computer?" "Of course, I'm on Facebook." "You said that last time I asked. What have you been doing all day?" Sky asked. She glanced over the Australian's shoulder at the monitor and sighed. "Really? You're really playing that?" "What? There's nothing wrong with that." "What's he doing?" Alistair asked, coming over to investigate. "He's playing Farmville," Sky stated with a grimace. "The most addicting game on Facebook. It'll rot your brain, Valen." "You mean he has one?" Alistair flatly stated. "Hey, I do so have a brain," Valen defended. "Well, whatever. I'm going shopping at the mall." "You shopping?" The teenager just laughed. "You're joking." The redhead raised an eyebrow. "When have you ever known me to joke?" "Then that proves it. You're gay." Lola's dragging you over there then?" Sky asked, stepping in between them before the argument could be allowed to continue. "Yeah, she wants to get clothes or something like that." "Have fun with that, Alistair," Raphael stated, appearing from the kitchen with a knowing smile on his face. Yeah, whatever," muttered the other man under his breath as he went out into the front hall. Although he had left the room in a hurry, it had not been fast enough for them to miss the flustered expression on his face. Lola and Alistair. So why did you buy all of this? Alistair asked, taking a sip from his drink. Easy, Lola stated, wiping pizza sauce off her face with a nearby napkin. I needed new clothes. What's wrong with the ones you have? It's time for a change in wardrobe. Besides, Sky's a bigger shopper than me. That girl will drag you to every single clothing store in existence. Still, you look good in the ones you have. I don't see why you have to change it all out when you're already pretty to begin with, he said with a dismissive wave. Almost immediately after he said it, though, his eyes widened and he shut his mouth with a snap. He had clearly not been planning on saying that out loud. Lola looked startled at the compliment, turning a delicate shade of pink. Thank you, she stuttered. Back with Valen and Sky. Get off the computer! Sky screamed, enthusiasm each word as she tried to yank the Australian off the computer. Currently, he was gripping to the table for dear life as Sky pulled down his legs. The attempt was going nowhere, though. Never, he declared. You're obsessed, she retorted. You need fresh air. I'm home. What on earth are you doing, Skylar? Raphael asked, walking through the front door and looking at the two younger people with confusion. He's been on the computer since you left, and it's still playing Farmville, said his girlfriend desperately, appealing to the older man. Help me! He won't budge! Sky, you have much to learn when it comes to Valen, Raphael said, walking over to them with a chuckle. He bent down and poked Valen in the side, watching his satisfaction as the boy let out a startled laugh and released the table. He fell flat on his face, while Sky was caught off guard and was propelled backward. Raphael got her at the last second, and she looked up at him with a smile. I'll definitely have to remember that, she said. Not fair, Raph, came Valen's muffled voice from the carpet. That's fighting dirty. Back with Lola and Alistair. So, how are things going on your end? Asked Alistair, watching Lola study a blouse. Nothing much, really. Same old, same old. What about yourself? How are things with Sky, Valen, and Raphael? He shrugged carelessly. Valen's pissing me off. I'm dealing with Raphael and Sky's romantic fluffiness, and Ember's trying to blow everyone up. Same old, same old. Must be fun living over there, she laughed. It certainly sounds like it. It can be at times, he said. He hesitated for a second before he continued. Lola, can I ask you something? Of course, silly, she smiled, setting the blouse on the rack once again and looking over at him. What is it? Well, we've known each other for a while, and I was wondering if you will maybe go on a date with me. Lola stared at him. A date? She repeated in surprise. Well, yeah, kinda hoping it leads to something more, but for now we can start with a date, he explained, blushing. So, will you? Lola eyed him for a long moment, remaining silent as she stared into his gray eyes. The redhead was looking back at her with a good deal of discomfort, though there was a hopeful light in his eyes. At least you're honest, she said at last, laughing a little bit. So, will you do the honors of going on a date with me? He asked, inwardly cursing when his voice trembled. Sure, she said brightly. Alistair's eyes immediately brightened up, and a happy light entered them. A genuine real smile also appeared on his face seconds later. Are you smiling? She asked with surprise, looking at the red-haired biker. Obviously. Usually you just smirk. Never really seen you smile. This occasion is an exception, he chuckled, raising an eyebrow in interest when his gaze landed on something nearby. And there's one more thing I have to ask you, he said, pulling it off the rack and hiding it behind him. What's that? She replied, turning around to face him. Her eyes went to where he was directly hiding something behind him, and she asked, What's behind your back? You're getting this, he announced as he pushed something into her hands. She took it from her and held it out a short distance away to see what it was he had given her. A gasp escaped her when she saw what he had handed her. It was a purple second spaghetti strap dress. She was certain that it would come just above knee length on her. She looked back at Alistair, only to find him watching her intently for a reaction. You're a pervert, she said flatly, smacking him upside the head. Seriously? He nearly yelped, turning a delicate shade of pink. Lola just walked away with the smart dress still in her hands. Let's go check out. You're buying that? He questioned, looking startled. You gave it to me. It's in my size, so yeah. Yes, I am, she replied, sticking her tongue out at him. Alistair allowed her to walk to the register, shaking his head in weary amusement. Raphael was right. I was worried about nothing. With the other bikers. Hey, Sky, Raphael said, walking down the stairs. When he reached the bottom and turned into the family room, he saw his girlfriend sitting in his recliner upside down, watching the television. Where's Valen? And why are you watching the TV like that? Shush! Spencer Reid is on TV, she hissed as she chucked a pillow at him from where she was, which he caught. What did you do to Valen? He asked, looking at the currently turned off computer. Doesn't matter, she asked, sitting up normally. It does actually, because help me, called the panicked Australian accented voice from outside. Raphael looked at Sky, who now wore a deceptively innocent expression on her face, and then walked out into the front hall and stepped outside to see where the voice was coming from. Raph, get me down from here! Valen screamed from somewhere above him. He looked up and stifled a laugh. The teenager was once again rolled into the rug, a rope tied around the carpet. This time, though, there was an additional rope attached that hung him from the roof. Your girlfriend is loony. Am I not? She defended, coming out to stand next to Raphael. Do I dare ask why you did that to him? He inquired of his girlfriend. I was only playing Farmville when she attacked me, retorted Valen indignantly, struggling to get loose. I told him to go out for some fresh air, but when he didn't, I got creative, she explained to Raphael with a grin. The blonde studied Valen for one more minute before he snorted in laughter. I'm sorry, but I keep waiting for him to turn into a butterfly. Ralph, that's not funny. Yes, it is, the couple exclaimed in unison. Chapter 28. Easter Candy and Bunnies. Wake up, everyone! Valen shouted loudly, causing the remaining members of the household to jolt awake. Alistair and Raphael were both startled enough by Valen to roll out of their beds. Sky screamed and sat bolt upright in her bed. Valen! Sky and Alistair screamed in unison, storming out of the rooms and down the stairs. This better be worth waking up at 6:30 in the morning morning for, you damn Nazi. Alistair snarled. It's Easter, chum. Why are you being so nasty? Because it's 6:30 in the morning, Sky mumbled, heading into the kitchen to brew some coffee. Decaf or regular? Decaf, Alistair stated, not tearing his annoyed gaze away from the brunette. It is way too early for this, so why is everyone screaming? Raphael called from the stairs as he started to make his way to his friends. He did not pay attention to where he was going, though, and he ended up slipping on one of the steps, falling the rest of the way down them. Good morning, Raphael, Sky called from the kitchen. Alistair chuckled and left the room to help the blonde up. Raph fell down the stairs again? Asked Valen as he watched the red-haired biker go. Yup, he's one of the worst morning people ever. Oh, ha ha, snorted Raphael as he and Alistair came into the room. But seriously, Valen, why did you scream? It's only... He looked up at the clock in the room and he sighed. 6:30 in the morning. Why doesn't this bother me anymore? He finished with a mutter. Because it's Easter, Valen exclaimed. This means that the Easter bunny came and left us goodies. The two male bikers looked at each other and then back to the teen. You sure you aren't thinking of Christmas, Valen? I'm sure. I know the difference. Santa's a fat bloke who spies on ya, and the Easter bunny isn't so temperamental as Santa, retorted Valen, folding his arms over his chest. You believe in the Easter bunny? Alistair questioned in disbelief. Of course, Valen exclaimed. He's just like Santa. Believe what you want, Alistair sighed. Wait, today is Easter. It's Easter Sunday? Sky asked sharply, pausing in her task to look at all three of the bikers. Apparently so. Ah! She squealed, her eyes widening in alarm. She carefully picked up Raphael and Alistair's coffee mugs, handing them to their respective owners. Sky gave Raphael a quick kiss on the cheek before bolting upstairs to her room, slamming the door behind her. The three men stared after her in confusion. What the hell was that about? Asked Alistair at last. Must be a girl thing, said Valen with a shrug before his eyes narrowed. Why aren't there any eggs hidden? The two bikers looked at each other. How on earth had they never gotten around to explaining what Easter was to Valen? Dart had never overly celebrated the holiday, true, but Mother Mary should have mentioned something in passing to Valen about it. Do you know what Easter is? Asked Raphael at last, looking at Valen carefully. The boy blinked and then nodded. Mother Mary always celebrated Easter the way all the adults did, where all the kids hunted for Easter eggs than the Easter bunny did. That the Easter bunny hid. There was something to do with religion, but I don't remember all that much about it. That explains quite a bit, said Alistair in an undertone to Raphael. He got the causes mixed up and no one realized it. No, Lola, I'm serious. I can't find my phone, Sky said irritably, storming down the stairs. The other bikers turned in surprise, noticing that the girl was wearing a white sundress. Red and black flowers were artfully scattered on the lower half of the dress, and it had black straps. She had completed the outfit with the short-sleeved black sweater and black heels. Sky, Raphael started. She just swatted him away and started to throw things into her purse. Sky, he said again. She still swatted him away, looking at him with a briefly annoyed expression. Getting fed up with the girl, he raised his voice. Skylar! What? She snapped back. You're talking on your cell phone. Sky took the phone off of her ear, looked at it, and promptly hung her head. I'm more stressed out than I thought I was. Sorry, Raphael. She apologized, only to return to her conversation with Lola. Are you coming? There was a small pause. Your family gets up at 5 every day. How can you not be ready? Asked Sky in disbelief. Another pause. Fine, see you in an hour. Bye, she said, hanging up. Mind explaining the freak out to us? Alistair asked flatly. Today's a really hectic day for me and my family, as well as Lola's. Sorry, I was so annoyed, said Sky sheepishly. Why so stressed out? Oh, wait, the Easter Bunny hasn't gotten here yet, that's why, exclaimed Valen brightly. Valen, there's more to Easter than candy and bunnies, said Sky in exasperated fondness. How so? Valen tilted his head to look back at Sky for an explanation. I'm Catholic, and every Sunday I go to church, which is why you never see me in the mornings, she began, but she was interrupted by Alistair's startled expression. What? You're Catholic? Asked the redhead. Didn't you ever figure that out? She replied in equal surprise. Not like you ever told us. Oh, oops. But anyways, you guys remember that I gave up chocolate recently? Kind of hard to forget that little announcement, since you banned us from having any in the house. That's why we hid the stash in our rooms, Alistair bluntly stated. Right, that's because it was Lent, when Jesus walked the desert for 40 days without any commodities. This week was Holy Week, when Jesus entered Jerusalem, and it leads up to Good Friday. That was when Jesus died on the cross for our salvation. 3 days later, he rose from the grave, so we go to Mass to celebrate his resurrection. Resurrection. Raphael seemed to have been familiar with the explanation, since his next question was, and the reason for your spasm? Our families go to Mass together every Easter, and we go get brunch afterward. Then for her little sister and mine, we have an Easter egg hunt around my parents' yard. Can we go? Vernon asked excitedly. Sure, if you don't mind sitting through Mass first. We'll all go, Raphael said, catching on to Alistair's reluctance to ask. If Lola was there, he would likely follow. Valen, a nice pair of pants and a polo shirt will be good enough to wear. No jeans. What? I can't wear. Don't you want to go on the Easter egg hunt? Asked Sky all too innocently. If you do, you have to dress up for it. Valen looked around at the faces of his friends before he grumbled and stalked up the stairs. Stupid girls and their stupid manipulations, he muttered as he went. I heard that. During the Mass. Oi, Valen whispered. What? Alistair asked. In this book it mentions the sign of peace. What do they mean by that? It means you shake hands with anyone around you, I hissed. Now shush, he's consecrating the Eucharist. What's the Eucharist? Vernon asked. Shut up, Alistair and I said in unison. He mumbled and went back to reading the pamphlet. It was then that everyone stood up and held hands, reciting the Our Father. Now what? Alistair just smacked him over the head. What was that for? Being you. The Lord be with you, the priest said. And also with you, I replied with the rest of the congregation, giving a glare at Valen. Let us offer each other the sign of peace. The congregation turned to one another and began to shake hands. I got on my tippy toes and kissed Raphael. I turned to shake hands with Alistair, only to see Valen arguing with the kid about his accent. Luckily, he wasn't yelling, but he was still disrespectful. Pissed, I grabbed him by the ear and forced him to stand in between myself and Raphael. "What did I do?" he hissed. "Behave," I said, venom clearly heard in my voice. "What? That regret started it." Raphael gave him a scary glare, which caused him to flinch and sit still. At brunch, Sky's POV. "Sky!" A little 5-year-old squealed happily, running over once she had seen me. The little girl looked like a miniature version of Lola, but she was actually my sister. "Hey there, Munchkin," I said brightly, picking her up. "You're getting heavy." "Oi, it's a mini Sky," said Valen, coming over to investigate. Behind him, Raphael and Alistair were following to see what he was looking at. "Guys, this is my sister Morgan. Momo, this is Valen. That's Alistair," I added once Alistair came up to us. "He talks funny," Morgan stated, pointing to Valen. Predictably, Valen scolded. "Says the kid called Momo," he retorted, though I can tell he doesn't mean it. Momo looked over at Valen and smiled. Suddenly, my sister's eyes landed on Raphael next, and she tugged at my hair. "Who's he, Sky?" she asked in a loud whisper. "That's my boyfriend, Raphael," I replied, watching him getting a glass of water. I could tell he was in earshot of us because at the word boyfriend, a small smile had appeared on his face. Morgan studied him intently for a long minute. "Is he going to be my uncle?" she asked at last. Raphael, who had been drinking the water at this point, choked and began to cough. His face turned a bright shade of red. "We'll see," I replied mysteriously, watching my boyfriend's face go an even deeper shade of red. "So, what did the Easter Bunny leave you?" I continued, changing the subject. "Candy!" she squealed, a huge smile on her face. "And Squinkies." "Wow, that's so cool. What's a Squinky?" Valen asked. "It's a children's toy. They look like those little things you can get out of a vending machine at the front of a grocery store. Those commercials have been on for ages," replied Alistair knowledgeably. "Oh, so Morgan, you've been on an Easter egg hunt yet?" Valen said, his eyes lighting up hopefully. "Nope. Mommy says we're waiting until after brunch to do it," the little girl replied brightly. "Awesome!" Valen exclaimed. Later after Easter egg hunt. "Has anyone seen Valen?" Alistair asked. This phrase was kinda getting old, but they were used to it. "Nope. Nada," Sky said. "He's upstairs," Momo said, looking up at Alistair from the floor, with Misha on her lap and Jasper sitting next to her. "He said something about eating candy." "Oh, damn." Alistair! Sky exclaimed. "There's a kid in the room." "Jizz," he finished. It was at this time that Valen came flying down the stairs, screaming, "Woohoo!" Misha bolted from Momo's lap, which only had him chase her. "Come back, kitty!" "Cripes!" Sky said. "Why is Valley acting like that?" "Well, Momo, Valen and sugar don't mix. It's like if you eat ice cream followed by spinach." "Eewee!" she exclaimed. "Eewee!" she exclaimed, making a face. "Yep," Sky nodded. So, Uncle Alistair, why do you dress like Sissy? Alistair smirked and sat down on the floor with her. I feel comfortable wearing what I'm wearing. Momo looked up at him with a look saying she understood the redhead. Sky, can I go swimming? Sure, Munchkin, Sky said, leading her up the stairs. She was stopped in her tracks when she saw Valen jumping into the pool with the struggling Misha in his arms. Valen, put my baby down. I'll get him, Raphael sighed, getting up from his recliner and heading outside. Idiot, Alistair muttered. I'm done for today, my lovely viewers. Please forgive me again for saying the numbers of the chapters wrong. I don't know why I even did that to begin with, because there are so many. Sometimes I can say the numbers wrong. So please forgive me if this will continue. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed it, subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notification bell. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.